Aloha Ukulele Magazine. I am here and very excited to chat more about how awesome the baritone ukulele is. I always enjoy baritone. It's sort of the least played, which is so sad because it's a great instrument. And right here I have got a beautiful Kanilea baritone that we're actually borrowing. So thank you, Kanilea, for allowing us to borrow this great instrument. So as I mentioned in the article, it is tuned differently, and it's usually linear tuning. So D, G, B, and E, right? It sounds gorgeous. I love, again, it's just so deep, so rich. Right? So this is your standard baritone. This is all, you'll also notice it's just a bigger instrument in general. That does allow it to have a bit more resonance, which is really, really nice. And this is also something that if you have bigger hands, you might find the baritone scale to be a little bit more comfortable for some of the different chord changes that you might need to do. Right? So again, you've got a little bit more space and it's just a beautiful sound. Now, if you play soprano tuned ukulele or standard tuned ukulele, which is your GCEA tuning, then you might feel a little intimidated with the baritone. But a few things that I mentioned in the article that I kind of want to talk about. And the first one is something that I'm kind of going out of order of the article because for me, this kind of makes sense. So real quick, I'm going to talk a little bit about how Craig and I perform together because you may or may not know that Craig and I actually perform with two different tuning. Though I don't play traditional baritone typically, I play re-entrant baritone, which I'll play for you in a minute. But the way that we first started playing together is we would think in numbers. So again, those of you who think in standard tuning, this reminds you of C, right? Like it looks just like a C. So if I had a 1, 6, 2, 5, so C, again, I know I'm playing baritone, but I'm thinking of my C chord. My 6 is A minor, 2, and then 5. Like I can play that and it sounds great. But if I'm just thinking in numbers, but I'm thinking in a new key, I'm thinking in the key of G. So if I was to play the key of G on my standard tuned ukulele, I would actually match up very nicely. And in fact, get your ukulele out. I'm going to go through and just play in the key of G on baritone. 1, 2, 3, play with B with your standard. And then end on G. Sounds great, and they complement each other very, very well. Now, I'm actually going to jump ahead, and I want to talk a little bit more about linear tuning versus the re-entrant. So re-entrant is what we all know as that high note on top, and then it's linear after. So high G, for example, and in the case of baritone, it would be a high D. So I have two examples listed. I have Hawaiian vamp. This is the beginning of a Hawaiian vamp that we commonly teach actually in standard tuning. But I'm going to show it to you in the baritone tuning. And first I'm going to show it to you with the linear tuning for baritone. So for this, I have the tablature in the article itself, so make sure to have it out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on that second fret, and I'm going to do a hammer on and hit the note again. Again. Nice. One more time. Do it 2 times in a row. Yeah, there we go. Again. Again. Nice. Now, for picking, it doesn't matter to me what you use. I'm using one finger right now just because of how I'm teaching. Typically, I'd probably use 2 fingers. I tend to pick with my index and my middle, so it would look something like this. Right? So index, middle, where I'm alternating. You can use thumb index. It doesn't matter to me. The main thing is getting the rhythmic portion of this correct. So again, we have 2, hammer, 2, hammer, pick, and then we're going to go to the 1st fret, 3rd fret, and then 2nd fret of the A, and then strum. Let's try it again real slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I came in and strummed early on the 1. Technically, what's written was how I did it the first time, but you can honestly do whatever you want during that measure. Okay, so that's us doing that on the linear. Versus if I have re-entrant, I'm actually going to be able to utilize the high D string, and I'll show you how. Now that I have my re-entrant baritone, now you'll notice it's a smaller ukulele. I'm actually playing a tenor ukulele that has Craig and I's special strings made by GHS, artist curated strings, where it's actually the re-entrant baritone meant for a tenor scale. You can hear that DGBE, but a high D. So now when we go to play this vamp, you're going to have the 2nd and 3rd fret. You're going to still hammer, but you're going to pick the D string, the string closest to your face. Nice. And then the rest of it is almost the same. You're going to throw in another one of the open D strings here. So you've got 2, 2, 1st fret, and then the bottom string, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I'm going to do it again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you can see how having this string, again, I love playing high G as well for the exact same reason. You can throw in some of those great melody notes right there, and it's I feel a lot less work being able to utilize that high string. And if you listen to Lyle Ritz, especially that album, How About Uke? You'll hear this tuning that he's playing. It's a beautiful sound, and I highly recommend trying it out. Plus, it's a really cool thing that you can do for a tenor that you have lying around and you're wanting to give it some new life. Put this kind of set of strings on it, and you'll have an awful lot of fun with it. Now, something else that I talked about in the article are creating bass lines. So this is something that I made up. I hope you enjoy playing it. I had fun writing it. This is sort of a bass line that you could potentially use for your doo-wop progression. And when I wrote this, I intended it to be swinging eighths. You don't have to play it that way, but I will teach it that way. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to be holding what is going to remind you of C in the next position. It's a G chord. So I'm holding 5, 4, 3, and 3. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to hit that string that's closest to my face, that 5th fret. Now I tend to just pluck the next strings after. You could strum it if you wanted to. It doesn't really, the detail of that doesn't matter as long as you get the timing right. So I have 5th fret and then pick or strum, 5, 4, 2, and then strum. Let's try that again. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And notice how when I'm holding this E minor chord, I'm using my index. Now, after strumming the chord, I'm going to hit that note one more time, and then an open string here, and then add my index, and then the full chord, okay? So, now I could do this guy right here and add this here. It doesn't actually matter. You can't hear a huge difference, but if you want to actually play a true minor chord, you can here, even though in my tablature I have it written actually technically as a 4 chord, but there's your 6 there. So let's go through that again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and open. There we go. Moving on, it's going to be the first fret and then back to the second fret. Okay, so you're holding those notes, keep them down, don't lift them up. So after we do the full strum, index, middle. And then we're going to form what should remind you of G7, but it's technically a D7 strum. And then an open, 4. I like to use my ring finger because I know I'm going to start over and I can slide it up to then get myself back to this G chord here. Okay, let's try it really slow. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and open. There. So it's a real fun way to add to progression you might already play, just throwing in some of those extra notes. Walking to the next chord is what we're doing, and that's something that is great for baritone, and it'll sound lovely if you have somebody in standard tuning just strumming away on the chords. Now, one thing that I talk about in the article is if you are fortunate enough to have someone to play with, it really complements that standard tuning very nicely. And you can actually start finding ways to maybe play duets together. I created just a couple of examples just so that you could try them out with your playing partner. Or you could record yourself and try to play them with yourself too if you'd like. So I'm going to walk through the first example with the baritone first, and then I'll walk through it with the standard tuning. And then I will have them both played together so that you can hear what they should sound like. So let's go through the baritone. Now you can use our standard baritone like this or the re-entrant baritone. It actually doesn't matter. I didn't do much on that D string, so it's not going to make a big difference. So you'll notice that I've got my C chord here, that 2, open, 1, open. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to strum that, and everything's quarter notes, so everything's nice and even. 1 and 3rd fret, 1st fret, and then open, and then I have 8th notes happening after that. So let's just try the first measure. Strum, 3 and 1 and open. Not too bad, right? And it doesn't matter to me if you want to play with your pinky on the 3rd fret or if you want to play with your ring. It doesn't matter to me which one. Again, the timing is what's going to be, the timing and the note you hit is going to be crucial. Looking at the next measure, we have a series of 8th notes. I'm starting with my 1st fret here on that bottom string. So it's like you're playing a scale backwards in essence. So I'm doing 1, open next string, 3, open, and then I'm going to hold the C chord. So remember, again, baritone, 2, open, 1, open, but I'm only going to strum 3 strings. I'm going to stop on the C note that's being played, okay? That guy right there. So let's go through and try to do the whole phrase. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. One more time. 2 and 3 and 4 and 8th notes. Nice. Now let's see what this would sound like with the soprano tuning. So here I am with soprano or standard tuning, and let's just walk through it. Hopefully your brain will be able to adapt because you're now playing C, so open, 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 and 3. And I'm utilizing the high G for this one. And this one is a whole bunch of 8th notes. So you've got the 3rd fret, G, 2, open, 3rd fret on the E. That's the first measure. Let's try it again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and strum G, 2, G, open G, 3, G. Then I'm going to play F. In the music, I actually have open, open, 1, open. Technically, that's F add 9. You can play a full F if you want, but I find it's easier because I'm going to go to that open G string right after. There's no need to hold down this note, this A note under that middle finger. So the next measure, we're going to have that F add 9 chord, G7, open G, and then C. Nice. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, strum G. There we go. Let's try the whole phrase. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Lovely. Now let's put them both together. Now I'm back to work on our second example, getting to play together and doing some fun harmonizing of notes. So for this one, I actually have us starting with a G7. This is kind of a fun ending phrase. That's how I was thinking of it when I came up with it. So I'm going to be holding my G7. Remember, I'm holding baritone, so my G7 is open, 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 and 1. Now we have a bunch of 8th notes. So it's going to be that open string, 3rd fret, index on the next string. So 1 and 2 and. Okay? Then the next chord we're holding is going to be the C, but you're going to add your 3rd, or you're going to add to the 3rd fret of that bottom string. And then it's going to be open string, index, and then 3rd fret. Okay, let's try just that phrase. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Not too bad. One more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. There we go. Let's move on to the next part of the phrase. We are holding our C again. And then we're hitting the 1st fret, 3rd fret, open, and then 3 strings, but holding our C. Okay? So that last phrase, we've got the full strum, index, 3rd fret, and then open, 3 strings, because we want to make sure this is our melody note there. Now let's try the whole thing, all 2 measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 2 and 3 again and. Lovely. Now let's learn the accompanying part on your standard tuned uke. Here we are with a standard tuned uke. Hopefully your brain can wrap around playing in this tuning now. We're going to hold a G7, which is that open 2, 1, and 2. Here we go. So we've got a full G7 here. Then we're going to have an open A, open G, 2nd fret. Now notice I'm no longer holding my G7 chord because I'm actually prepping myself for the C, which is coming next, right after playing that 2nd fret, okay? So again, we have G7, open A, G string, 2nd fret, then the C, G string, and then the F add 9. And actually, I accidentally played that open G there. It should be your 1st fret again on that E string. So let's do that one more time. G7, A, G, and then the 2nd fret, C, G, first fret. That's how that one should sound. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not too bad. You're already holding most of it under your hand, so it shouldn't feel too foreign to you. Now, the second half of it, we're actually going to start with an open E string. And then the third fret for your C. And then use your middle finger on the second fret of your C string because you're going to have to play a G7 right after. So you might as well be prepared. And then the C right after that. So that second part of our phrase is an open E, 2, G7, and then a C chord. Let's try to put it all together. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and C, F, second fret. Nice. One more time. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and beautiful. Now let's hear how they sound when you put the baritone and the standard tuning together. I hope you have a lot of fun trying out the baritone. You know, as I mentioned earlier, it's one of those instruments that I feel doesn't get enough love. You know, it's a great sounding instrument. It complements that, standard tuning so well. And if you can wrap your head around, using numbers, you can find that you can easily switch between playing both tunings fairly easily. It's a wonderful instrument, and you should definitely try adding a little more baritone into your arsenal. And the great thing is you don't always have to buy a brand new ukulele. They do have string sets out there. As I mentioned earlier, Craig and I do have our GHS strings. We actually have re-entrant baritone meant for a tenor and linear baritone meant for a tenor. So you could always test it out first with a spare tenor you have lying around before you decide to go and purchase your baritone ukulele. So thank you so much for joining me with Ukulele Magazine, and I really hope you have fun playing your baritone.